I haven't been trained on this yet, so I'm just going to press some buttons. That worked. Backwards, that works. And the laser pointer. Excellent. OK, great. So hello, everybody. Yeah, so it's almost like we coordinated. We didn't. But coincidentally, I'm going to expand almost more holistically on what Lee and Gareth have mentioned before. So just a bit about me. My name is Mike. I've been at Observe Point for nearly 9 years. That's a very long time in the digital world. People move jobs every year or two. But before that, I was a digital analyst. And so I've seen, in that role, I've seen a lot of, tracking break, things go wrong, data go missing, either infinite year-on-year growth when last year's data was broken, or, minus 100% growth when this year's data is broken. And in my time at Observe Point, excuse me, just getting back from a bit of an illness. In my time at Observe Point, I've also seen lots of my clients have incredibly bad data quality. So today, I thought I would run through some examples of those with a Google focus and give everyone in the room a checklist, almost, of things that they should do at a very holistic, high level. I know, obviously, Lee and Gareth went into some really, really detailed tips of how to optimize your GTM containers. I'm going to zoom out and teach you how to optimize your tech stack in 2024. OK, well, that was me. We'll just skip that. OK, so firstly, why bother collecting correct data? I think we all know why we should collect correct data. If your data's wrong, your reporting's kind of pointless. So anecdote number 1 of the day is Observe Point recently onboarded a new customer who had just migrated to GA4. They were doing a dual tracking, so 360 universal and GA4 together. GA4 reports 50% of the traffic of their 360 universal. And so they came to us and said, what's going on? So we audited the GA4. You're shaking your head. So we audited the GA4, and it was absolutely perfect. It was like, you've got a great example of a brand new GA4 setup here. So then we looked at the GA360, which they had, by the way, been using for the previous 5 years. And we found out that they had actually been double tagging with the GA360 for essentially the previous 5 years. And they hadn't checked it. They had kicked the tires occasionally, but they hadn't done a big site-wide audit. They didn't realize that the tag management team had implemented their GA360 tracking. They didn't realize that the development team had kind of got a mixed match and also hard-coded the same tag to their page code. So yes, someone had a very bad day when they had to report that their traffic is actually half of what they've been reporting. But someone else had a really good day when their conversion rates doubled, right? Yeah? So, obviously we're all laughing now, but I'm not joking, it's a real anecdote, it's a real story, so someone somewhere, hopefully not in this room, suffered that day. OK, but obviously, so correct data, that leads on to good decisions, correct allocation of marketing budgets. Already touched upon by Gareth and Lee. Obviously, tags are heavy, so page load, speed, performance. And these feed through to things like core web vitals, quality ranking, and scores like that. Obviously, having too much technology is just a waste of money, especially if you're not actually using it. And obviously, when it comes to 2024, GDPR 6 years ago, we've got consent mode v2 last month. So there's a lot of things that everyone in this room needs to check, and it's not easy. So I'm going to give you, starting on the checklist. First thing is, check what tags are present. I've obviously filtered this for the Google tech stack broadly. And so I just want everyone to look down the left-hand side first. Firstly, this is the list of, this is a report from Observe Point. So these are the Google tags and also the consent management platform that were actually found on this website. This is a real website. The first number, is that 30? So this is a website with 30 different Google Tag Manager containers. This is a real website. And obviously, we're not here to tell you what's right or wrong, but I would suggest that that's difficult to manage. We've also got 2 Google Universal 360 Analytics tags, so accounts, data sets, or views, or properties, as you might call them. So that's OK, right? 2, that's OK. 25 Google Global G tags, each to their own. 1 trust, very good. Only 1 CMP on 100% of pages right here. So that is actually set up well. GA4, 3 accounts of GA4, again on 100%. And right at the bottom, can anyone guess what that is? What's Google Analytics? We've already got Google Analytics here and here. So what is this? This is a tag that should not have been implemented by anybody for the last 13 years. This is the classic Google Analytics, previously known as Urchin. So this website is what we call a Google Analytics museum. So yes, I'm glad you're laughing, because yeah, my heart is pounding, so I'm glad you're all with me. So yeah, this is just one example of check what is there, check what's supposed to be there, find out if it's something you can get rid of, basically. And also, on the right-hand side, I haven't spoken much, is the coverage. You don't want to have mixed coverage. You don't have incomplete tracking of your core analytics packages. Next one. OK, so diving into those 30 tag management containers, you can see here, this top one is kind of clearly the main one. But then we've got all these little GTM containers. And I think Gareth touched on this previously as well, is ensure you need them all. Ensure your organization controls them all, and ensure you know who has access to read, publish, and edit and modify. There are many situations where we've worked with clients who have worked with media agencies in the past. They've switched media agencies, or analytics agencies, or tagging analytics agencies, and they didn't remove the TMS that was actually set up by the previous agency. So it kind of leaves your business at the mercy of an agency that you just dumped. Again, it's kind of like having your ex's stuff in your house. Don't want to be in that situation. OK, next one. Duplicate tagging. Again, this has been touched on. So firstly, duplicate tagging takes load time. Many of our customers are now on mobile devices. They might be in the sticks with poor connections, right? So you want to minimize what's loading. But secondly, you want to catch duplicate tagging because you don't want to double count your metrics. So here's one example. It's only a small infraction. Uh-oh, I've pressed the wrong button. I pressed the black button. If I press black again, hey, laser. Here, the third line here, you can see here, there's a Google Analytics. There's 10 duplicates here. So under normal situations, Google Analytics can already deduplicate because it's got the serial cache buster bit. But you still don't want to be sending your tags twice because it's twice the browser load. And if you're a paying customer, it's twice the CPM. So you're losing money to not gain any additional benefit. So that's not too bad an issue. But when it gets big, when it gets a large business, and you're double tagging on all your pages, these costs can get out of control very quickly. OK. So moving on then. Well, this is the 2024 bit now. Hands up, who knows what consent mode is? I'm expecting everyone, pretty much. Excellent. OK, so consent mode, just to give everyone a really quick history background, and because I've got a bit of time to spare, is Google's response to the GDPR about 6 years ago. The first version of consent mode allowed you to basically stop your tracking or turn it on, depending on if customers declined or accepted cookies. A more nuanced and detailed version, called Google Consent Mode version 2, was released more recently and allowed people to have things like anonymous tracking, tracking on, tracking off for various different Google products. So much more kind of permutations and combinations. Now, Google asked nicely, or forced, and made mandatory Google Consent Mode v2 to be on all their clients' websites by the 6th of March this year. And my understanding is if you haven't met that deadline, then it's much harder, potentially impossible, to actually target your marketing. So one of the things everyone should be checking on their websites and their clients' websites is that Google Consent Mode version 2 is activated. You can do this in one of two ways. If you have access to the tag management container or the Google G tag container, you can actually go into the settings and just check that. But if, for example, you're an agency or you're an agency that's just brought on a new client but they've not given you access yet, how could you check without having access to the GTM container? So what you can do is actually go into the network console log and actually have a look. And I've highlighted, so this is just the details of a GA4. Ooh, cameras. That means this is actually useful for some people. Right, so what you can do is actually go into the console log or use any of the many site debuggers and look for a GA4 tag and look for the GCS or the GCD query parameters. I will laser that again. So if you can see the GCS variable, it means that consent mode version 1 is enabled. and the value G100, so the final two characters, they're binary flags. So the 00 means permission for analytics and permission for marketing by default is off. The G1, I don't think means anything, but I'd love to be corrected if anyone wants to come afterwards and correct me. Don't embarrass me publicly. So that means version 1 is activated. However, if you see GCD as well, and that's got a lot more variables you can see, GCD means version 2 has been enabled. And the weird string, like the Q, I think is a delimiter, and then the 3335, those are the values of the permissions that have been granted for GA4, floodlight, user data, and I think targeting settings. So it's a lot more nuanced, and I'm not the dictionary that knows it. Okay, so yeah, absolutely. These are some very important things to be checking in 2024. Let me continue to the next slide. Now, consent mode, I see it as essentially the API that allows your cookie consent management platform, or your CMP, to talk to your various Google tags. But most of them are now certified to be compatible with consent mode v2. But just like everything that we've talked through so far, humans make errors, people come and go from your organizations, and mistakes are made. And so you might have a situation where your CMP, for example, OneTrust here, is correctly connected and controlling a Google Tag Management container. This would be a correct setup if it was the only Google Tag Management container. But what we can see here is actually there's another GTM container which is loading lots of Google Global G tags. It's loading a big advertising loader. You've got another hard-coded Google Tag Global Tag here, which is loading some more analytics. And I guess the context of this is that this is a report in the ObservePoint platform which shows you what is loading what. And this page was audited with a cookies declined situation. And it's a UK website running from our UK data center. So you really wouldn't expect to see the analytics and the advertising tags here. So clearly what's gone wrong here, and also not to mention this new relic loader is hard-coded to the page HTML, which means that regardless of what you've done in GTM and your CMP, new relic would not have been blocked anyway. But what's happened here is that OneTrust has been connected to this one appropriately, and it's turned everything off here, but they've not turned everything off here, or here, or here, or here. So the point here is that, working on what Lee and Gareth showed you, you can optimize and make sure things are running in a given container, but you also have to have a bigger picture. You need to know what all the containers actually on your website are. This probably is an example of where a marketing agency came along and slapped in a GTM container. Okay, cool. So let's move on to another example. This is the same kind of report. Again, this is a situation where we've got a cookie consent management platform blocking Google Tag Manager. You can see that is set up correctly here. But we still have Google marketing tags. So again, this website is at risk of breaking GDPR and PECR rules. And this is what I see all the time. And I know there's a lot of marketeers in the room, so I hope you're listening. When you embed a YouTube video player, the default settings are to allow marketing tags. And so what that means is regardless of how well managed your consent management platform and your consent mode options and your tag management setup is, if you're going to bring in a YouTube embed video, it's going to by default have advertising. And there's a really, really simple way to get around this. Is to rickroll everyone? Nope. When you select a video on YouTube to embed, there are some options. You can choose to start it at 0, or you can choose to start it at certain, the first verse maybe, or the first chorus maybe. But there is a button here called Enable Privacy Enhanced Mode. And this will allow you to embed YouTube videos without there being targeted ads on your website content. So, okay, moving on. The really, really up-to-date stuff, well, kind of up-to-date stuff, even though Google recently made an announcement that kind of delays what I'm going to tell you. Cookie partitions. I'm sure most of you in the room are aware that third-party cookies will be deprecated in Google Chrome over the course of 2024, although I think a few days ago they delayed it till 2025. as Google always do. But what this means is that third-party cookies will be blocked. They will not load unless some updates have been made. And so there's an example of a correctly updated cookie here. So this is the MSPTC cookie on Bing.com. So it's a third-party cookie. And Bing have updated their technology so that this cookie is allowed to load on this website, walterskluver.com. So that's called a cookie partition key. In 2025, or whenever Google actually decides to push this through completely, all of these other cookies will simply not load. All these other third-party cookies. On the other hand, this Bing.com third-party cookie will start acting like a first-party cookie, but at least it's loading. So you think back to your own websites, how many third-party marketing technologies have you brought into your websites where you're not sure if they've updated their technologies adequately? But it's not just marketing, it's not just retargeting, it's not just analytics. You know, who here has an e-commerce website or works with an e-commerce website? Who here has a first-party payment platform? Right? If you're using something like a PayPal or a Klarna or essentially any third-party payment system, you really want to make sure that they've updated their technology so that their website will continue working on your website. In fact, I tried to buy a flight on easyjet.com last week, and I couldn't pay. I can't nail it down to a third-party cookie issue, but I think maybe it was, because I am in the 1% sample of people who are trying to be difficult. But other things like applicant tracking systems, right? Everyone has a third-party applicant tracking system to list their jobs and for candidates to apply, your blogs, your forums. There are so many third-party technologies that depend on third-party cookies that might break unless you have an audit and see which ones, which technology vendors have kept up, basically. Okay, so moving on. Actually, no, we've moved on. We're finished. Hey! Okay. Thank you very much.